This story was a little harder for me to find the center of in some ways. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the big thing for me was finding the three-dimensionality of the characters in that film, and the clue there was, you know, Edmund being bad, and trying to find out, okay, why was he bad? And then looking at the personal situation that the kids were in with their father being away at war. So I had to find a similar thing in this story. What I found is the emotional heart of the story that I could relate to is this sense of going back, or trying to go back to a place that is no longer there.
Andrew wanted to tell a very personal story to him. And for him, thematically and metaphorically, this was his own experience.
I grew up in Papua New Guinea from when I was 11 till 18 years old, and I've never gone back to the place because I feel like it will be a sad experience. I'll be going back to a place that no longer exists. And I felt that was something the Pevensies were doing. They were going back to a Narnia 1,300 years on from their 15 years of glorious reign, and the Narnia that they knew was gone. It didn't exist.
At the end of the day, the story asks us all to believe in the ideal place that it used to be, and to believe that it can be brought back to that place again.
When we were in the middle of frantically finishing The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and we were so up to our ears with work and not getting any sleep, and it just seemed like we were never going to get the ball up the hill. Andrew Adamson called me one night. He said, "Do you really want to do another one of these?"
Coming out of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I actually thought the last thing I wanted to do was do another movie with children, animals, visual effects, locations, all of those kind of things. But I think the main reason I did this was actually the kids, the Pevensies, we'd really grown into this family on the last film, and I couldn't really imagine letting them go off to another director.
Thank you, Andrew. It's fun.
All right. Dragging your brother up.
That's what you do. When he hasn't got
Wait, I haven't got action yet.
When he hasn't got extra.
And I just really wanted to be back working with Andrew, working with Anna, Georgie Skander. I wanted to meet Ben. I wanted to do some more fights. I just really wanted to be on set. You get this on-set bug, and I've definitely got it. You know, I was sort of craving it.
Who did you miss the most, Georgie? Skander?
I probably missed the most.
Skander.
Big me! Big me!
I missed everybody all the same.
On the last film, we came out of it all sort of saying it was one of the best filmmaking experiences we'd had. As Prince Caspian started coming together, everyone kind of either was available or kept themselves available to do it, and we really assembled the same core group of people that we had last time. Isis and Sim and Dean, and in addition with Wendy, the other visual effects supervisor, Roger Ford, who is, you know, really a creative right hand, Mark Johnson, Phil Stoyer, and Howard Berger, who did such a wonderful job for us last time. All of these people available. And the interesting thing, I think, with all of these people is they'd overcome the challenges of the last film and embraced this film as being more challenging.
You've got to make this film bigger, it's got to be better. So to know that we could all come together and rely on each other and know that there was already, you know, shorthand, you could throw half a sentence out to someone, they'd know what you're talking about and be able to help you. And the camaraderie that it sometimes takes half a film to build, we had from the start.
It was great. It was a real strength for everybody. I think that this project was a lot bigger, quite a lot more challenging, a lot more locations, a lot more visual effects, and I think that there was definitely a sense that the bar had been raised.
And action!
It's much, much bigger than the first film. The locations are all over the map.
The internationalism of our undertaking is very romantic, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it has its shortcomings, too.
There were so many logistical challenges that we had. It was amazing.
On any given day, you have people up at the castle doing rehearsals for the fight scenes. You have a whole costume factory making hundreds and hundreds of outfits. You have people rehearsing one scene whilst the camera's setting up to shoot another. You have Georgie and Skander in school. There's just kind of endless departments, it seems.
They had challenges in the first film, but nothing on this level.
It couldn't really be any bigger unless we went to the moon.
If you're wanting to do something more and you have to operate in a zone of discomfort, you've got to go into your zone of fear. And I think you have to approach it as an adventure.
This would work if they kept going. You know what I mean? If you had this pines like this size that just kept going for a couple of 100 meters, then you get the feeling that you're going into a darker forest.
There's just about nowhere in the world that we didn't go to look for locations.
The glamour of Hollywood, eh?
We were definitely shooting in some less than friendly locations from a natural point of view. And it's always fun to invite the executives from Disney and Walton to come visit us in Usti. Oh, by the way, you should bring your insect spray because we have to do tick checks every night. It became a sort of a running joke on set about doing tick checks.
I heard it was the size of a watermelon. Is that true?
I think possibly a bit bigger, actually.
By all the tick checks, that's right, yes. Running through that grass, it was kind of like the scene from African Queen. Andrew's never chosen locations for convenience. He always just chosen locations for their exact perfect fit for the story, which is what we so respect about Andrew.
We started off the film shooting in New Zealand, and every location was a challenge. We had to helicopter into places and drop gear in from boats or other cargo helicopters.
It's definitely challenging, fun challenges. Peter Dinklage, on his first day of shooting, actually was at one of these locations where you only get to by helicopter. Once you're there, you're not getting back out. He's got shaved head that he's just shaved for the film. He's got yak hair all over his face.
So somewhere there's a yak on top of a mountain who's very cold, and I'm sorry. And then a long red wig, and it's, you know, it's summertime. It's not the coolest of makeups.
And these things called sandflies, and if you leave any exposed skin, they chow down on you.
That is a sandfly. As you can see now, it's penetrating his nose.
He's lying tied up in the bottom of the boat being bitten by sandflies, and then to top it all off, two soldiers pick him up and dump him in the river.
It's very cold.
So that was Peter's first day of shooting, and he stayed through the end of the movie.
I could be working in an office right now, instead of getting bound and gagged in New Zealand.
And that's how we started the film, so we knew it was only going to get more difficult along the way.
We're like this giant mobile community moving from place to place.
When we were shooting in Usti, where the large battle happens at the end of the film, I think we were feeding between 800 and 1,200 people, depending on the day. That's a small army, a small town. We had people staying in people's houses. We had the hotels filled.
To be able to have housing for 680 people in a tiny little town in Slovenia was kind of unheard of as a task.
One of the things I really wanted to do in Narnia is give the sense of a world that was as big as ours, as multicultural as ours. And the history of the Telmarines coming from pirates allowed me to mix ethnicity and really create a world that felt bigger. So I started to look to the Mediterranean, thinking that's where the pirate activity was sort of centered. And because we were shooting in many countries, I always wanted to try and also bring in people from the countries we were working in. And that meant that we could also tap different countries for really their top talent.
We had Pier Francesco Favino and Sergio, who were Italian, Vincent, who was French, and then obviously some Czech actors, and Peter Dinklage, who is American.
No, I'm not a bad man. I am a good man. I am an Italian man.
We were shooting the Council of Lords, the Telmarine Lords, and I walked out and all the lords were sitting, waiting outside the stage. And I literally went down saying, you know, buenos dias, buongiorno, dobry den, dzień dobry, good day. So there were many languages spoken.
Hey, estos son mis amiguetes.
There were people that were multilingual with us on our crew. Pier Francesco, who was playing General Gazelle, spoke about 3 or 4 languages, and sometimes he would just help me out. He would just jump in and help translate if I was trying to communicate a more complex idea. And he could translate into Italian or Spanish for me. So everyone kind of chipped in, and we dealt with it pretty well.
Scene 129. 129. Pas de mots. Pas de mots. Dillo.
129.
Yes.
Cos'è la 129? Sì, se questo negli speciali italiani sarà molto apprezzato.
This is getting very dodgy up above now. That would be stereo thunder.
Here comes the rain.
disadvantage about being in these stunning locations is that the weather is completely erratic.
70%, does that mean it rains 70% of the time, or it just rains on 70% of the area?
You can go from being sunny 1 minute to pouring with rain and having thunderstorms the next.
I think probably the hardest times for me as a director is when you're in situations you can't control. I think the reason people become directors is they like to control things.
10 minutes ago, it was a gorgeous sunny day. Look at it, 10 minutes, Czech Republic. Weather changes.
One of the reasons to shoot in Europe was they said, okay, so we're in the middle of Europe. It's a huge continent. You can see the weather coming. You can predict it. Much easier than shooting on the small island of New Zealand. Absolutely not true. I don't know if it's just me and I have a strange magnetic field, but the weather would just change. There were definite times where we were literally just sitting waiting for the weather.
You know what to do with my umbrella? Waiting, waiting, waiting on the sky. Just waiting.
Everyone's standing around waiting. Waiting for the sun to come out.
And I hope we don't have to wait too long.
It's been long, long days. We average about between 18 to 20 hours, and we get very little sleep, but I think sometimes we function better with very little sleep. The delirium kicks in, and you just go, and like, I must do a makeup, I must remove a makeup, I must go to set. But nonetheless, we keep it very fresh and happy.
Caffeine works, you know, caffeine. No, you know, I have created an ability to withstand long extended periods of extreme stress.
4:30 in the morning and it's a 6-day week.
Stay clear, guys.
Right now it's 5:15 in the evening, and we've just been told that our pickup for tomorrow morning is 2:30.
Make sure there is plenty of hot coffee.
See you bright and dark on Tuesday.
I would compare what Andrew Adamson has just done to, in many respects, what a general oftentimes has to accomplish. He has roughly 3,000 to 4,000 people who are reporting to him, various divisions who have to be tactically on their target all the time, or else failure can occur.
I would follow production and editorial would follow production. I had a pretty comfortable life compared with the people who were standing around in the long grass, watching the ticks jump on their boots. It was analogous to being the headquarters and having the war-weary troops come in at the end of the day to watch dailies. In fact, when we were in Usti shooting the battle, it really was like watching an army come home every day, because every day, as the light would fail, you'd start to see the first Telmarine troopers coming back with their gauntlets and gloves resting on their saddles. Their horses tired and dusty, they'd come in and you'd see them unsaddling their horses and hosing them down. It was just like watching a Napoleonic army coming back from a campaign.
You know, definitely it feels at times like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. You have to remind yourself at various times throughout production that you're not saving lives, you are just making a film. The film is meant to be enjoyable and you should be enjoying yourself doing it. And there were things I would always try to do to convey that to the crew.
Andrew's always the leader. He's the leader and he sets the pace and he sets the mood for the entire production.
Very good. Let's go again right away. Give it a good entry, Skander.
The trees are shaking, something's happening out there, you're not sure what.
And very kingly, and action.
Andrew's very respectful of everybody that works on the film, from the person who's handing out craft service to the DP. It's all equal under his eyes.
Thanks, Tony. Cheers, mate.
Well, he's cut his hair, which was a bit of a relief, but he's just totally the same.
Miss Georgie?
How are you? Good, how are you?
He's just a lovely person. He's great with kids. Like, if we've had a bad take or if it hasn't gone so well, he makes us feel like it was all right, but there's something we can improve on it.
A little less smiley and just more regal.
I feel like it's just slower.
Yeah, probably.
Instead of saying, that was rubbish, he says, it was okay, but you could have done this better. And he's really funny, and he makes us laugh. It's really good.
The most amazing thing about Andrew is his ability to keep it all in his head, and he's such an organized director, and he knows exactly what he wants and is going to get it.
So you could actually come through the crowd, go on to Anna, go around Anna, step up and lift up into the air.
We are surrounded.
Amazing.
I'm never quite sure how much of Andrew's vision of Narnia is continually developing and how much he had in his head to begin with. Because it seems to come so naturally, it just sort of flows out of his brain. And every aspect of it, he's got such detailed image of it in his mind.
You can see it's blocking out.
He's blocking out, right.
So if I was going like from here around to here, I would feel like I have a change.
He visualizes everything in his head, and that's what I do. So I can listen to what he's saying and what he's telling me and understand exactly what he wants.
I think it's really good. What I'm getting from it at the moment is it's working really well from here. I think the brown eyes, like a deep brown eye, will make him a bit more likable. I think he's a little scary.
On Prince Caspian, Andrew's mandate for us was we have to excel and we have to surpass what we did last time. Howard took that to heart, and he had this great idea that would cause a lot more work for us, but it was a smart idea, and it was the right thing to do.
I felt that on the first film, everybody was about 30 years old. But this time, we're really spanning different age groups. It really feels like Narnia has become a place that's really lived in, you know, because there's all these young characters and older characters, and some are black and some are white, and so we really kind of mixed it up.
And I think what Howard's done in this film is that he's taken the creatures he created before, the centaurs and the fauns, and really made it seem as though they're an established culture.
My sons and I offer you our swords.
I'd have to say on this film, my favorite Narnians are the dwarves. I really love the dwarves. And we have two fantastic dwarves characters in this film. Aside from just being great, great actors, the makeups are fantastic, if I say so myself. The makeup on Peter Dinklage is very subtle, and Tammy Lane is spearheading his makeup. It's beautiful.
I think they've really managed to make me look completely different, but also managed to still have my expressions and my emotions work with the makeup they've provided.
Drop him. That's the best you can come up with.
It also does a lot of the job for you, which is really neat. Because if you look like somebody else, you can hide behind that character.
And cut.
Andrew came from a visual effects background, so right out of the gate think, well, everything's going to be CGI. But he's really learned to embrace things that are practical, that he can see happen on set.
Andrew has a philosophy. It's something that I very much believe as well, which is that the more that you can capture real in a frame, the easier it is to make the CG work look real.
One of the things that I really liked of the work of Andrew was the fact that the use of visual effects is never generic. It's never pushing to obtain just astonishment or a wow. It's to add depth to what we're doing, and at the same time to enrich, if it's possible to say that, the vocabulary of cinema.
Just a great combination of all the magic tricks, and that actually creates a new magic trick. Because people go and see the movie, and instead of it being a full CGI creatures going this way and that way, and the camera spinning around characters that are all CGI, and people going, wow, that was really a crazy sequence. It was all computer, you know, it pulls you out of the movie. These films don't do that. It's almost invisible.
I liked the fact that although you can do a lot with green screen and so on, there's something that happens to the cast and crew when you put them in a real location. There's a reality that comes into their performance. There's a believability that's just there because it's real.
The first time I walked into the castle set was to do stunt practice with Alan Poppleton, and I was really quite intimidated by it. I think that's what that set gave me performance-wise, was the fact that it's a life-size castle courtyard, and when you fill it with Telmarine soldiers, who are basically burly stunt guys, and you're asked to fight them, even though you know what the routine is, it's fairly intimidating.
It's one of the biggest sets that's ever been built, I think, that I've ever stepped inside. And still, it's only about a third of the size of the real castle height. When you look around, the walls will go much higher. We'll have towers surrounding the whole place. I mean, this is one courtyard that sits inside an entire palace. We'll also have to go out and shoot miniatures, which will be shot in a whole other part of the world. We're going to shoot them down in New Zealand. For this set, we have probably 8 different types of miniatures we're going to shoot.
There's 1,500 visual effects shots in this, just so much bigger than I would have imagined, even from looking at Lion Witch and the wardrobe and the scope of the work and the quality of the work in there. Just everything is bigger in this film.
You know, one of the things, again, with providing new challenges for yourself, I think, was within the CG realm. I think we'd accomplished a lot on the last film in terms of creating a very realistic lion, as well as the other creatures, but I think Aslan was probably the greatest technical accomplishment of the last film. That being said, we're actually reinventing the wheel sometimes and recreating Aslan, which is the advantage of being able to improve upon some of the things you did last time.
There were, I must say, a handful of shots that were extremely difficult that went to the last minute. to get right. We wanted to make Aslan better and look better and make the fur look more real and blow more realistically in the wind, all those things. We had to raise the bar interactively with the cast. You know, Lucy comes in and not just nuzzles with Aslan, she tackles him and they roll on the ground and they get dirt all over him. It makes the film more believable, and when you break those barriers that are always there with visual effects, it helps people forget about the visual effects and just enjoy the movie.
This is the reason we have gathered.
Narnia is a magical place, and there's magical creatures, so you can't really be in Narnia until you've sort of found these amazing characters everywhere.
Reepicheep was always one of my favorite characters from both this book and Voyage of the Dawn Treader. He uses a sword very well. He's small and ferocious.
Yeah. Choose your last words carefully, Talmarine.
He takes himself very seriously. He's very noble.
You are a mouse. I was hoping for something a little more original.
One of the things I thought, well, the world of Narnia is quite British, and he really should be like a British nobleman. He is a knight. He's a knight of Narnia, and he's very proud of that fact.
Your Majesty, with the greatest respect, I do believe courageous, courteous, or chivalrous might more befit a knight of Narnia.
When we started going through names of who could pull this off, there's a very limited number of actors out there that I think can bring that nobility and somewhat of a poshness to the character without it going too cliched. And one of the people that came up that I was really interested in speaking to was Eddie Izzard.
He's very much a medieval mouse gone mad who's going to take them all out.
Mouse. You people have no imagination.
He's Mad Max crossed with a stormtrooper. He just goes in, he just attacks from the front.
There's always a voyage of discovery from when you design a character to when you cast the voice and when you start animating. Very often you'll take the same piece of dialogue and you'll give it to 3 or 4 animators and see what they come back with. You can take this bit of an actor's physical performance and this bit of their vocal performance.
I trust you have a very good reason for this untimely interruption.
And then the animator brings their own perspective, and suddenly you end up with a whole new character that's different from any of those individual elements.
I said I would not fight you. I didn't say I'd let you live. Reepicheep! Stay your blade! Truffle Hunter?
The new characters, Reepicheep and Truffle Hunter in particular, have, large speaking parts. And we always try to work very closely to keeping the character looking like the animal that it is, its fur qualities and so on, so that the audience buys that it is still a mouse when it's doing the human things that it does.
Yes, I'm a mouse. Yeah!
Some of the challenges with CG anthropomorphic animals are not really in the what you would think in the technical execution at all, but it is in the animation. It's how do you make, a badger's mouth pronounce human sounds.
Look what you made me do. I spent half the morning on that soup.
It can be as simple as things of like keeping the movement forward in the mouth, not letting it come too far back. One of the things I learned early on in Shrek with Donkey, because he has such a large mouth, he had to do a lot of the sounds in the front. Truffle Hunter is quite similar in that way. He's got this elongated face, his eyes are on either side of his head. There's certain poses that you have to do to make sure that he doesn't look cross-eyed, Quite often he'll talk to you slightly more three-quarter on.
You're meant to save us. Don't you know what this is?
I want to kind of expand the world in terms of accents. The Talmarines come from the Mediterranean. Ken Stott came to me, and he just has this edge to his voice, but he was really able to pull off this wonderful earnestness. And he's just got a very rich quality to him. So the idea of a Scottish badger just seemed somehow appropriate.
Enough, Knickerbrick! Or do I have to sit on your head again?
I know from talking to Andrew that he was a little more worried this time than the last time about having live stuff on set for the kids to react to, because I think the first film, again, there was this sort of innocence, especially with Georgie, and allowing them to use their imaginations to conjure up a beaver or a lion where there was a tennis ball or a stick.
You can always do the performance later for the digital characters, so if you don't have the actor's performance, you're always going to have a shot that isn't very good, So the way Andrew works is, he has a representation of the creature on set to interact with.
It's not very hard because we grew used to it in the last film. And Andrew tells us who the voices might be in things. And if I know the actor who it might be, or, I can visualize their voice and things, which is really helpful as well. So it's quite good.
When it came to Aslan. So we had Shane actually in an Aslan suit. Sometimes we actually had Howard in an Aslan suit, which was a riot to see, I gotta tell you.
Shane had to be replaced. He was complaining too much, so now I'll just do it. Okay, I'm going in, Shane. Well, spot me. Okay, I'm done, Shane.
Because Howard barely fit in that suit, and he was really sweaty in there, I'll tell you, because we had to like pull him off later.
I'll give you $100 if you don't ever put me in that again.
Andrew's assistant, Alina, actually, in my first scene that I did with a CGI creature, I was doing a scene in Truffle Hunter's den, and she played Truffle Hunter. And she was dressed completely in green lycra, but holding the tray that the badger had to hold, holding it like a badger would, and kind of putting on a voice.
Chunkin knew what he was doing. It's not the boy's fault.
There's nothing more helpful than that. It's so much better than somebody hiding behind a wall and just talking to a completely inanimate stuffed badger, which we've also had to do on occasion. When I got the job, I thought, surely I must have some scenes with a lion. They're not going to have a lion there, are they? You know, me knowing technically nothing about it. And then you turn up on set and there's 200 creatures all in blue lycra trousers from the waist up and made into these perfect fawns or centaurs or whatever they may be. And that's enough, I think, for an actor.
There's something I did a lot in animation, which is I would read the off-camera lines, and as a director, it allows you to control slight performance changes without having to give notes. You just change what you're giving and you get something different back. With Georgie in particular, she started the first film when she was 8 years old. She was a long way from home. We found a connection when we first met that I sort of ended up just becoming very bonded with her. And I think that became this useful thing for the two of us, that whenever she was doing a scene with Aslan, who of course wasn't really there, she wanted that sort of paternal presence that Aslan has, and it became this thing where I very often do the off-camera.
I wish I was braver.
If you were any braver, you'd be a lioness. Now, don't you think it's time you woke your friends?
And I think what it does for the scenes ultimately is that you get a better interaction between Georgie and Aslan, because she's reacting to somebody who really was there in the scene. She has such a genuine smile and a genuine emotion on her face. And so then when we put Aslan in, it becomes a very real physical connection, emotional physical connection between the two of them.
Things never happen the same way twice, dear one.
Georgie is just a really extraordinary child.
When who lived here?
She still has that sort of wonderment. But as you get older, you lose a little bit of that and you question things a little bit more. And so whereas last time it was more like a game, it was more like a child playing a game, I think, the whole acting experience for her. This time she had a more challenging acting role. And it was, I think, some of her maturity and experience from the last film really allowed her to pull that off.
Georgie is incredibly mature and bright and lovely. She knows herself a lot better and is a lot more comfortable with herself.
It's King of Narnia, always King of Narnia.
It has been a year. How long does he expect us to wait?
Andrew really has recognized William's athletic ability and let him do a tremendous amount of stunts that you normally wouldn't let your lead actors do.
I'm very competitive, I'm very determined, I'm very hands-on, and so there was a lot of things I was really willing to try, and physically as well, I wanted to build myself up.
There's one stunt that happened in this courtyard during the night raid where Will is running after a horse and actually leaps up onto the horse and rides out all in one shot, and it was pretty spectacular.
I was like, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna give it everything I've got. And I just running at the horse, grabbed hold of it, kicked the guy, and knocked him straight over, and then jumped on the horse. And as I came back, everyone gave me a clap, and that felt pretty good.
Well, he was able to do it. And there's not many actors that can actually pull those kind of moves off, but he actually did it for real, which means we were able to be tight on the main character of the film, doing a pretty incredible stunt.
Basically, if William didn't, if for some reason he decided not to do his acting, I think he could potentially go into the stunt field, I think.
You might be surprised.
Oh, you don't want to do that, boy.
Not me. Him.
Yeah, Skander, very talented guy as well. He's always keen to rehearse. He picks up things really, really quickly. I think he's changed since the first movie. He's got a little bit more aggression, controlled aggression, what we like to call it.
Yeah, I was 12, now I'm 15. And it's weird to think that it's taken up a fifth of my life. And yeah, no, everyone's old. Like, we've all kind of gone through a lot, and it's kind of affected like who we are in ways, and it's really cool. People have realised that my costume is the same colour as my horse.
When I first got the script, I was really excited by the fact that Susan gets to do a bit more action stuff this time.
Anna kicks ass in this film, basically. You know, in the last film, the girls were sort of split off for a lot of the action parts of the film. I think there's no reason that women can't be included in the stuff.
I have loved doing the fighting scenes. I've loved being in the raid and the battle and kind of getting my teeth into some of the stunts and stuff. That's been really exciting because I didn't get to do that so much in the first movie.
I always was very annoyed even in the last story that in the book, Father Christmas gives her a bow and arrows, but she never got to use them. And I thought, well, that's really unfair. It's kind of like having a Christmas gift that you're not allowed to play with. So it seemed right. And on top of that, Anna had specifically asked to do more.
I'm currently trying to fix my quiver so that I can grab an arrow and stab it in someone's leg.
Well, Susan allowing herself to adopt that more kind of warrior status is actually her getting more comfortable with herself and growing up a lot and becoming more mature.
We're taking those characters on a very different journey than they went on last time. And as I say, a bigger, darker, scarier, more adult journey for the kids. The kids have all grown up, you know, the Pevensies have grown up. And this movie allows them to grow up as well.
I will look after it until you return.
I'm afraid that's just it. We're not coming back.
Queen Susan is in The Horse and His Boy, but pretty much this is teenage Susan done, which is really sad.
For William and Anna and I, this ends this experience with Narnia. So for all of us, when we got to filming the scene of the goodbye, we were all dealing with the emotions that we were going to have saying goodbye to each other, you know, a month later.
And we still only got 50 days left. But it's the end of the film, all right?
And that wasn't a really hard scene to film because it was obviously sad because Will and I won't be coming back. It's bittersweet.
I think the emotions of melancholy and nostalgia and what I call bittersweetness are something we really all tap into and understand, and it's something that I felt like this story was imbued with and something I wanted to get across in the film, and something that we experienced making the film, is we were returning to Narnia. It wasn't the same as the first film. You know, the first film was an exciting new adventure for all of us. The kids came into this now as seasoned actors. I came into this as a second-time live-action director. All of these things, we knew the pitfalls, and because of that, there's a certain cynicism that comes with it that is a sense of loss, a loss of innocence. So I think our personal experience going through the film sort of had that trying to recapture the family feeling, the innocence, the naivete with which we embraced the first film. Because the challenges were bigger, because the journey was different, because the adventures were different. And I feel like we got there. I feel like the movie story-wise got there, and I feel like we personally got there.